are the nerds. We are the nerds of the apocalypse.
Several nights where I put on Futurama just so I can watch it and just pass out to it. I've watched probably gone through the whole series. I think I'm on 8 times now. Wow. Yeah. Wow. So I watched a lot. So when I heard that you were going to be here and I was offered the opportunity to speak with you, I was very thrilled. It got me through my whole week.
Well, I appreciate it.
And also your newest show, Disenchanted.
Disinfectant.
Disinfectant. Oh, yeah, I'm wrong. No, so you play. Let's go back to the past.
Okay.
What was the first show you ever did before you even got picked up?
Well, I was working with Nickelodeon very early on, and yeah, I did Doug, that cartoon.
Yeah.
Kind of sweet. Yes. But he's older now.
Oh.
You know, and sometimes they don't grow up the way we think they will.
Dear Journal, today I blew up a courthouse.
And federal judge Roger Klotz.
Oh, look who's in my court today. Funny, you loser. Guilty, guilty, guilty. It's written all over your face and it's even spelled wrong.
At the same time, we did Ren and Stimpy, and the audition tape that I did, that sold the show, but then it was decided that I was just going to do Stimpy, and I didn't give a fat frog's ass who did what, because I had a job, you know, I'm a journeyman. I have immigrant mentality. You know, my uncles, they're up there, goes, you got a chance to work for 18 hours a day and you didn't do it? What are you, a schmo? You know, so I can hear them haunting me. But Ren and Stimpy, he was based on one of the Three Stooges. I used to watch the Three Stooges before I went to school every morning. I had no interest in academia. I wanted nothing to do with school. I knew in my heart of hearts at 10 years old that adults were full of shit. And, you know, I kind of did because I watched the just randomness of rules and do this or do that. Why? No answers, you know. And so I would go to school with a head full of like the Three Stooges. And it's so funny is everything that gets shoved down my throat when I went to school in the 50s and 60s, you know, it would do me absolutely no good in the year 2018. But the Stooges, when I discovered them, I stopped going to church, you know, it's like I found my saint. So Mo Howard was the boss, come here, you know, and Curly, and no one gave a damn about Larry, but I found it totally fascinating. You know, the little that he did just chewing up scenery, you know, he'd be like, if he saw Mo doing something to Curly, he'd be like, you know, when they cut away to him, but when they didn't cut away to him, when he's in the background, he just was kind of like, yeah, so then what happened, you know? And I thought he was fascinating. It's like, you know,
Hey Mo, I peed on my shoe.
why, you idiot? Keep it yourself. And
There's too much sizzle in the tree, Mo. I'm warning you.
and then I just thought that was sublime for some reason. And I used him as a basis for Stimson J. Cat on Ren and Stimpy. He was like, you know, you couldn't have a cartoon character that sounded like a depressed old Jewish guy. You know, like Manhania, you know. To you, I look like an actor. You know, so anyway, he was, Stimpy was amped up and sped up, kind of performed that way, like, you know, so he could adhere to the cartoon parameters. You know, it's like,
Hey Ren, will you button me?
you shut up, you fool! Else I shall kill you! Thank you. One time ago, something left.
Did you ever actually get around to making Delphi on the electric fence?
There was, what do you mean, like, in real life, or?
I didn't think they really did. It was a joke, but...
You know what, the guy who played Satan in that little ditty,
Always an idol.
he was also the the Russian coach in Rocky, the Rocky movie where he was fighting the Russian fighter. And remember that little guy who was like, you know, yelling and screaming at him and everything? Well, he did a character called George Liquor. You know, George Liquor, American! And I thought he was the greatest, you know. It looked like he was going to have an aneurysm after they worked him out. You know, he comes out of the booth and he's going like, oh. And he's like, if you put your thumb on his forehead, it would stay. You know, yeah, I mean, because he was so red from screaming. And, you know, he was like, oh, God, I gotta just lay down and sleep. So, you know, I just remember him being all beat up and worn out, but I had a bad childhood, so I was used to getting beat up and worn out, you know, and bounced around. So I could take any abuse that anybody could possibly dish out, you know, so I'd be screaming and yelling and, you know. It was kind of cathartic, the experience, you know, to be able to just like let stuff out of you and scream. Yeah, I used to lose my voice occasionally. I was married at the time, and I would call my wife and I'd go, honey, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this stupid show. I lost my voice, I'm losing it. And, you know, if somehow you find a way to do it, you have to, because you have no choice.
Yeah, they get you that way.
Yeah.
What was the transition like between Stimpy and Doug? What was the time difference between those two? It was going on at the same time?
It was going on at the same time. And at that very same time, I was working on the Howard Stern show in New York City. Yeah. Hey, Robin, I just farted. That's not bad. Some people know some of it, some people never. And Jackie. How old are you now? 68? 72? Full-grown man laughing at his own jokes. Yeah, so, you know, all this was going on at the same time. I was doing the devil's work on the Stern show, and Ren and Stimpy, and I was doing this sweet little cartoon. Yeah, but it was just, I kind of got used to it, and I had to realize that things aren't normally like that. We have to just split up into a million pieces. But I was always grateful. I knew like how lucky I was to be able to express myself like that. Because when I was a kid, you know, no one could contain me. No one knew what to do with me. I just Touretted out voices and noises and, can you not do that? Can you quit it? Can you stop? You know, and if I saw a piano, I'd start playing. You know, and so I was so bursting to contribute or just do anything where I could be used as part of a project. And I got into radio, you know, and then after that I began auditioning for commercials and cartoons. And, you know, I'd work, and I would audition for anything. If you want to work, you got to audition, you know.
When did you get picked up for Futurama?
What year?
Yes, sir.
It was 1999, I think.
Where were you in your career at that point? What were you working on before that?
I had already been doing the M&M's commercials. Have you ever eaten a yellow? Yeah, and a lot of people didn't know that the yellow M&M is J.K. Simmons. You know, yes, it's a big secret. He wins an Oscar one day for Whiplash, the movie Whiplash. He wins an Oscar, and 2 days later he's working with me. That's a journeyman. That's a guy who didn't let anything get to his head. He works, he does the insurance commercials, State Farm. Seen it? Covered it. You know. And everybody knows him, and he stole the first Spider-Man movie, in my opinion. But years earlier, I don't know if people remember, he was on an HBO show. It was called Oz, and it was the prison show. It was scary. It seemed real. And my wife was, when I was married at the time, she was a big fan of the show. So I come home one day, and she goes, sit down. You got to watch this HBO show. You know, there's an actor on here, but he's no actor. This is the real deal. It's really coming from him. And I was saying, really? And she said, no, he's frightening. So I look, and I'm watching him, and I go, and she goes, what? I said, I know him. You do? Yeah, he's the yellow M&M.
You can't see him any other way after you see him do that.
No, I know. I know.
That reminds, see, he's a police officer, right? He recently became one. And so,
You did?
And so I heard his police.
I didn't do it.
Voice for the first time the other day. And
His police voice?
His assertive voice.
Oh, okay.
Where he's like telling someone
Well,
to
you
stop.
set it up, now you have to do it.
Yeah. Let's pretend that you think I have a weapon. And
No, can we not do that scenario?
Yeah.
You know how it ends,
We
right?
already went up on
Anybody that's stupid enough to resist arrest is going to get in just a world of shit. Yeah, you know, I don't care. Just say, all right, what do you want me to do? I'll just shut up and do it.
No, I just wanted to talk to me. That's all. I was like, hey man, hey man, just speak to me. Just tell me what's going on.
I'm not saying nothing you did. Don't change me, bro. Don't change me, bro.
It's funny if you find me after this, I can show you footage of someone who did something very similar to that.
I've seen it
Oh man, I lost where I was going with this.
too. No, go ahead.
you were going to show off your assertive.
Was I?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
stop your bad.
You have the right to remain silent sometimes.
Yeah, at the times. But you feel it.
What?
You feel it, you buddy. I'm so nervous.
Oh, come on. What do you got to read them their rights and everything? Sir, I have to ask you to step out of the car. Yeah. And the cops are like little children now because I'm 66. They all look like they're in high school. No, it's almost like, you know.
Oh, Bo, I love you. If you're watching this, you're a good man.
No, this is good entertainment.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, the one guy was like, I'll talk about the girl who wouldn't come out from behind the car.
Right.
You know, it was like, man, come out, get out here, do it now.
Yeah.
Come here.
Yeah.
Turn around, put your hands behind your back.
This way?
Okay.
Oh, that way. Okay.
It's just, I kind of, it's more like I'm not really so confused, but like, come on, let's just work together. Let's be a team.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm here to help you. I promise. Just let me put these bracelets on.
That's good. No, but I thank you for becoming part of you know, the justice and law and order system. It doesn't work perfectly, but it's like anything else, you know.
I had jury duty the other day, and I walked into, I walked in, and he was in there because he had a case, and he was like, what did you do? You're not supposed to be here.
No, you know what it was is I hated it when I got jury duty, and I used to get out all the time because you call me right after 5 p.m. and they'll tell you on a tape if they need you or not.
Voices and they thought you were crazy?
No, I got in the court and I sat through the whole preliminary, you know, and I was whittled down. They were interviewing people, and they said, okay, do you think you can be partial in this case? Regardless, race, creed, color, can you be non-partial? And I said, well, I don't know, what's the case? And they tell you the case. They say, well, this woman drove through a town at 90 miles an hour. Hold it! I said, I'm a law and order guy. Nobody should be driving anywhere at 90 miles an hour, I'm sorry. And they said, you know, I didn't have to go back. Because they were trying to stack it in the woman's favor, and I was like, you know, little Johnny Jones, I'm gonna mess this up.
Well, thank you for doing jury duty. Not everyone shows up.
No problem. So I have when I found out I was doing this, I was like, there's one question I definitely have to ask about as a kid. Because I grew up in the Ren and Stimpy Doug era.
You look like you grew up okay.
Yeah, I did.
You know, there were all these evil adults trying to protect children. But guess what? You know, kids are born learning machines. It's the adults that are like, no, you can't, and don't, and quit, and stop. You know.
And there was a transition period with Doug. Like I think it changed networks or something.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, I was wondering
Well, I took
how
the
that works.
Nickelodeon Doug. I didn't do the sucky Disney Doug.
Oh.
That sounds like it is so
No, I mean, I didn't. I couldn't do business with them, you know. They wanted too much. I'd done it for 4 years, and then here they come marching down the street saying, okay, we want you to do more voices, and we're going to pay you less money.
Oh, yeah.
And so what I said was, I wish you nothing but the best the world has to offer you. Thank you for, you know, inviting me to the party, but I declined.
Well, that's good because I don't like it that much.
No, you gotta wish everybody well, you know.
Yeah.
Even when they're, you know, they expect you to laugh while they're stealing your shoes. That's okay.
And so you go, you had your Nickelodeon era, and then we moved to the Futurama era, and that blew up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really lucky, you know, Matt Groening, I mean, who didn't know his work? And I got a chance to audition, and they had me reading all kinds of stuff, and they'd show you a drawing, and they'd tell you a little bit about the character. And I thought long and hard before I opened my mouth, you know. I just saw the look of Zoidberg, and I said, well, he's kind of corpulent. And the funniest, the most hysterical thing about him is that he's a doctor and he's poor. What? I never met a poor doctor in my life. And so it underscored what he was kind of a loser, really. But means well, like all of them do. And so I looked at him, he had all this cool meat hanging off his mouth, and he was kind of girthy, so I thought his voice would be, you know, lower register. And years ago, before there was television, there was something called vaudeville. It was in theaters, and people would go there and watch 12 acts. And then they'd come back out and do, you know, another session of 12 acts, and it's the same people. It was their second act. But you could go in any time and there would be some kind of show going on, like juggling acts and dancers and, you know, singers. And, so there was this guy, he would toast everybody, he would be the master of ceremonies, and his name was George Jessel, and he would go, you know the definition of a smartass? A fellow that can sit on an ice cream cone and tell you what flavor it is. You know, and I just love guys like that. They're originals, you know. And then there was an actor from Yiddish theater. He also had a marble mouth. And he was the guy in Arthur that leaned in and went, what's it like to have all that money? You know, and I thought, what? You know, this would be perfect for this guy. So I fused them together. You live in on the ground? Why not Zoidberg? Your business is bad, and you should feel bad. I'm struggling. And let's see. Oh, Fry was going to be another actor, but they had me read for it anyway, and they got back to me after the fact, and I try to remember what I did. I try to make it unassuming, and then I began to realize, wait a minute, I was doing myself when I was 25 years old. I was all whiny and nasally and complaining. You know, and I was in a band, and I made a living. I was like, oh man, I broke a string. Now what am I supposed to do? You know, but the ant's gonna blow up. I just know it. I can smell it from here. And I used that voice as Fry. Shut up and take my money! You know, and it seemed like a natural thing to do. Plus, I didn't want anybody to ever steal that voice, because that's the impossible one. Nobody can really do what someone really sounds like. You know, they can do an impression, but you know, that was exactly who and what I was. And the professor, they wanted me to read for him, and he was a collection of doddering wizards and madmen and sorcerers, and since he was 147, you know, I thought, that's really old. He must fart dust, you know. So I mean, and I did him sort of like rickety, and it was like, I don't want to live on this planet anymore. You know, it worked for them. They really liked it. Good news, everyone. Bad news. Yeah, we ran out of good newses one time. And then there was Zap Brannigan. And I never auditioned for him because Phil Hartman was going to do him. And Phil, I knew. We made friends before all this. You know, he did an M&M's commercial with me. And he played Chucky Barr. You know, the guy was getting all the girls, but he melts in the sun, so bye-bye. And of course I could take over from there because I had a thin candy-coated shell, wherever it is. And so we were all heartbroken that he passed, that he was murdered, actually. It was really awful. But when we were talking together and we were hanging out, we talked about our common love of big dumb announcers from the old days. You know, like the old-time radio guys would be like, well, it's 30 minutes past the big hour of 8 a.m. You know, they had nothing to say, so they kind of like, and they loved the sound of their own voice, you know, far and away above anything else in the world, so they didn't want to give birth to it. So I said, I can do all these guys for real, you know, but who talks like that? And I said, you know, I'll just do to kind of make fun of all those guys. And kid, inform the men, I made it with a woman neck. She's a bit of a ship, all right? I'm gonna fly her brains out. Yeah, and he was a quintessential a-hole, you know, I mean, just like, everybody has met that, especially women. Champagne? Oh, how classy, how suave.
He was one of my favorite characters. We saw a guy actually cosplay that at the last con we were at.
Really?
Yeah, we got super excited.
I see them and I just love it how everybody's so into it. You know, it might be cool to be a nerd now, but it wasn't 56 years ago. You know, when I was out on Halloween and I would get so into it, I would make the Flash costume because I had the original comic books, you know, when they just were coming out. And, you know, and everybody was like, Halloween was just one night, barely. And now it's like Halloween month. You know, they got the candies going in January for Halloween month. And everything's become Easter month, you know, St. Patrick's month. Because people want to just whoop it up, I guess, and celebrate whatever.
Speaking of whooping stuff up.
Yes.
So, Disenchantment. The newest show you're on. Who all seen Disenchantment?
You like it? I love it. I think it's so great. It's so cool.
I got really excited when I saw that, and then I found out that you voice Sorcerio. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I do Sorcerio, the court sorcerer, who is kind of like, you know, shadowy figure that hides in the background, you know, and a couple of drops of elf blood. Yes, you know, put it into an inanimate object. Very good, very good.
Heart of Dude? Leg of Dude? Rest of Dude.
Rest of and I did the jester, who is like, the court jester comes in and says something that's barely funny, and they always give him the heave-ho. Yeah, the king thought he was going to get everything, and he got butt-kissed. Oh no! And the elf king.
That was you too?
Yeah, that's like,
No, you mustn't go into those woods, I'm telling you.
and, oh, and I did, who was it? Oh, Elfo's dad, Pops. Oh, son, pick up a seat. Let me tell you about your mother. Your mother was a saint! You know.
Question that Elfo had for his father.
Yes,
Oh, okay, go ahead. Yes, you can.
but I don't remember it. No, because we grind out 20 shows, they produced 10 of them, and then they put them all up. So it's quite a cliffhanger. And I didn't even get to see the end of the last episode. I had to check out of the hotel. So it's more of a cliffhanger, I guess, to me. Yeah, but I love the way that they're doing it now. You know, where you can just watch everything when you want. You know, network television is not really serving the needs of modern thinking. You know, because everybody wants to take their time and do what they need to do while they can, and then off to something else. Everybody's really busy.
So, is it a different recording structure when you're doing something like Netflix when it's so long as compared to when you're doing like episode?
No, it's usually you're involved with a 4-hour recording session, especially if you're working ensemble. We did that a lot on Futurama. You know, everybody would be there. You know, John DiMaggio, Tress MacNeille, Lauren Tom, Dave Herman, Maurice LaMarche, John DiMaggio. We'd all be right there. And so I knew these people. They were like family to me when we were doing Disenchantment. Plus, I was thankful that Matt, wanted me to come in and do some work. I was really happy for that. And so there's 10 more that are going to get dropped. I just can't tell you when. See, that's the problem with getting everything you want right away. Where's season 2? I gotta have season 2. But the thing is Disenchantment, I guess I call it morphine for diehard Futurama fans. I don't feel any pain. I feel good, it works.
I thoroughly enjoyed watching that show when it came on. My girlfriend, she had an issue with the humor, but I was like, just you need to watch it, babe. I swear you're gonna love it.
Yeah.
I finally got her to watch all the episodes with me, and she smiled through it. I appreciate that. Maybe it is like morphine, but what was it? So when you get contracted through Netflix, I'm always wondering, because that's all these Netflix originals. Are you actually working for Netflix, or is it just a show that Netflix decides to pick up?
I work for Matt's production company.
Okay.
And the umbrella company is Netflix, so I'm technically working with them or for them.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So, going back now to your characters, I know I'm jumping around a little bit.
That's all right.
I know you said Fry was like an embodiment of you.
Kind of.
Kind of.
Well, I gave him, I wanted him to be able to be vulnerable, like anybody could like him, and sort of laugh behind his back because he couldn't quite express himself. It started here and it wound up here and something went wrong. Hey, Fry, I heard beard make you stupid.
No, it doesn't.
I said to the director David, no, it doesn't. He goes, please read it as written. Okay, all right, sure, whatever. And then I see it on TV, I'm like, ah! Boy, am I stupid. Because I didn't get it, but it was the best acting I ever did in my life because Fry doesn't quite know what he's saying, so it rang true.
Which character do you enjoy? If you could pick one, you don't have to. You always say all of them if you want to, but
yeah.
Could you? Is there one that you were like, man, this particular time in my life doing this character, this was my favorite.
I wish I could narrow it down or pin it down, but I put so much into everything I ever did. I mean, I always thought this might be the last job I ever have in my life, Everything could be unplugged. And so I wanted them to at least outlive me. And so the Fry character, which is the closest to my real voice, I wanted, here he is involved with Leela, and she wants to like him. They fantasize about each other in different ways, and you were always waiting for them to get close, but Fry was like, when I was going out with girls when I was like in my 20s, I was a real project, man. It's like, and women used to love like having me come into their life so they could like change me, It's like, why are you dressed like that and picking at my sweater? And, come on. But I wanted him to be a project for Leela, where she's like, oh, if I could just nail him down to something, turn him from a primate into a mature human being.
And my girlfriend's trying that with me, it's not working. It's not
Yeah, it will.
Will it?
Yep.
Do you have a favorite episode of Futurama?
Yeah, I have a couple. One is The Devil's Hands. I really loved it because it was an opera. And Ken Keeler, who claims that the only way he knows music is kind of emotionless and that he's a math whiz and a genius, actually, and he writes, but he said, nah, I don't get excited, and like he could care less about music, and I finally pried it out of him that he loves music and he loved writing this opera. But the thing is, it's written in such a unique way that the melodies are very unique, because I used to make a living playing music and singing, and I was trying to navigate this strange melody, and then Katie Segal is a professional singer, and so I went to see her, and she would say, oh, I'm playing at this place, and we'd all go down and see her, and she was so good. God, she was just so good, and I just felt like blessed that I was around these people,
you ever have a best friend like Bender?
No, the vendors in my life were busy making my life hell. No, if you want to get technical on Doug, the character Roger Klotz, you know, I mean, his hair came to a point, his nose came to a point, his shoes came to a point, you know, and he was like, you know, always like, and I knew a kid in school that used to do that to me, you know, like, laughing at me all the time and trying to make fun of me. And you know what, there were a lot of them, because if you're different, if you're artistic or sensitive in any way, they circle the wagons. You look like a wounded animal to them. Let's kill them. You know, chase you down. No one understood where you were coming from. And so, and you know what, most of them are all, I imagine all of them are dead or in jail now.
You're welcome.
Yeah, go work it out. Work out your problems with other men.
Yeah, we have a writer for just the same thing. Like people that she doesn't like, she puts in her books and kills them.
Oh yeah?
So,
It's a character?
Yeah.
Oh nice.
So it's like the same thing. Like you can voice the person you didn't like, yeah, and make them.
This is a woman?
Yeah.
Yes. I like powerful women.
Yeah.
That have the power to kill you.
So,
I love trouble. I should have it stenciled on my head.
is there any, say there's somebody out here who wants to maybe get into voice acting?
Everybody. You know what? I have to tell you, I've met thousands of people, young people, that want to know how to get into voiceover. And they ask me, well, how did you get in? Well, when I was growing up, there was about 3 channels, barely. And so I felt that everything, I'm so sorry, everything that came out of the TV, I was desperate because I knew that this is the last time I'm ever going to see this. And I might be watching the coolest thing that I ever saw in my life, and it's going to be gone in 30 seconds, forever. Because no one knew when they were going to play it again. There was just no way to know anything back then, you know. There was, God, like I said, there was only about 3 channels, so I absorbed everything. If I was watching a cool old movie, I'd like take it to heart. And then when they invented the reel-to-reel tape recorder for home use, I would tape TV programs and I'd listen to them, you know, at night under the covers until the brown oxide tape wore out. You know, until you could barely hear it. It'd be like, constant playing of it. But I used to tape shows. One of my favorites was a spy show called The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And, you know, he just was everything my dad wasn't. He was suave and sophisticated. He was really cool with women. And, you know, I kind of said, oh, that's how you want to be. And then, you know, and I would just, my whole world was a sonic world, though, more than a visual one. I used to listen to the radio and characters. So the thing to do is just find out if you have any inclination inside you to try that. When I learned that you have to be fearless, I had to find some way to come out of myself. Because I was reluctant to perform. You know, because my friends wouldn't give me props. I'd do the coolest thing that I worked on, and they would just stand there and go, you know, so, you know, and I'd say, how good do you have to friggin' be for these guys? And what I learned later on in life is that these guys hated you because you were standing in front of them doing things they would never, ever, ever be able to do in their life. You know, I'd hate me. I would. Yeah, because it was like, you know, what are you trying to do? Make us look like jerks and monkeys? Is that it? Yeah, kind of.
Okay, well, for the first step of this discussion, I'm going to open up to a Q&A.
Okay, that's great.
All right, so I'm going to get up, Mr. Grant, so shoot your hands up if you have a question. Oh, man. Here we go.
Literally so many.
Yeah, here you go, yeah.
Did you ever pull inspiration for a voice from someone that you knew, and then they found out and got upset with you?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't think so. But I have done people that I knew. Just throw them in here and there, because that's where all the good stuff comes from. I mean, even if it's not exactly the person's voice, it could be their personality. It comes from everywhere. Even if you do a crappy impression of somebody, it's a voice no one's ever heard before. So there's a lot of ways you can go. I had a friend who talked like this. You know, and he was my best friend really 33 years ago when we worked in radio. Now he's like one of the most important guys in Hollywood, television comedy. You know, he's got the show Mom, and what's the other one? Shucks, The Big Bang Theory. Yeah, his name is Eddie Gordetsky, and you know, he just became huge. But we used to hang around the radio station, and we were just like bums, you know. And I used to say, imagine Eddie, imagine what it must be like to be the guy. I mean, the guy. And I called him up a while back, and I said, at least one of us knows.
If you could bring back at least one series, like any of the old shows you've been through, like any of them, or even like an old movie role, which one would you like mostly like take the gun for?
Well, Futurama was my favorite show, and I would have loved it just for the writing alone. I mean, even if I had nothing to do with that show, I would have loved it because of the style that they wrote it in. And the ideas, the ideologies that were going on were quite different. It was another way of, you know, performing humor.
First of all, I want to say thank you for voicing Doug Funny. He was one of my favorite Nicktoons
Really?
to watch.
Well, he was just, you know, he was so sweet. He had heart, you know. And you'd find yourself among people that had no heart, especially when you went out in the workaday world. You find out how rotten people can be. You know, you're trying so hard not to offend anybody, and there's always some guy, you dissed me. You know, huh? Who are you? I don't even know who you are. So when people have heart and soul, that kind of, it makes me feel good.
Are you able to do a Kermit the Frog voice?
Not right now. I'm choking to death. I don't know, I never really did it. Kermit the Frog. It's not easy being clean. That's about all you're gonna get out of me. If they were paying me for it, I could go on for hours.
I have $1.
Okay, so you like work on hundreds of programs and TV shows and stuff.
Yes.
In your time of working in television and movies, did you ever have like a project in which you had input on like the script or character development? Like say for instance Futurama?
Occasionally, they were really good about, you know, my job first and foremost is to give a director exactly what they want or what they say they're looking for. You have to do that. You have to respect the script, you gotta respect the words. And then afterwards they would say, you feel like doing anything? You know, actor's choice. And I would sometimes just have out with some remark or, and a lot of times it would wind up on the cutting room floor, as they say, and other times it would make it in. So even like the Planet Express building, there was a sign out front, and I used to make jokes about this Chinese place that I used to go to, and I said, they should have a sign, sorry, we're open. You know, and it was on the Planet Express because one of the writers heard me talk about that. You know, little stuff makes it in.
First off, thanks for all the wonderful creations that you brought to us.
Thank you.
Just real quick, if you somehow had the power to make one of your characters real for a day, for you personally to spend time with, who would you pick and why?
Well, I'll tell you why first. Or, well, I'll tell you who first. Nixon. Because that bastard drafted me in 1970. And I remember when me and my mom watched the debate. It was the first televised presidential debate ever. And here comes Kennedy, you know, he looks like a game show host. He's got that buttered toast hair and that ultra bright smile, and he looked like $1 million. And then when you went to Nixon, the extreme close-ups of him, and you could see his 5 o'clock shadow coming in and sweating, and his hair was matted and everything. I want to be president of the United States because, you know, I said, Mom, he's going to turn into a werewolf. So whenever I looked at him, I would go, well, that's the reason why I want to be president. Yeah, so, because the writers said, why do you say Aru? And I said, it's a long story. But I said, you want me to stop doing it? No, we love it. We don't know why. Oh no, I was just gonna say, to this very day, in the Nixon library, there plays a continuous loop of all the Nixon stuff I did on Futurama. I won. He won.
Oh man.
Hi, so just like it's been said before, Futurama is a huge part of my life, so thank you for everything that you brought to that.
My pleasure.
We're in this sort of like reboot culture right now, like all these old shows, they're coming back in new ways, like Rocky Bullwinkle got picked up by Amazon, stuff like that.
Yes.
So what would be like the dream reboot for you to work on? Is there a particular like old cartoon, like old Hanna-Barbera or something like that?
From the old days? Shucks, I don't know. I mean, I was lucky enough to replace, not replace him, but I mean, do Mel Blanc's work, like in Space Jam.
And they got the voice of Michael Jordan too, Doc. No suspend to a religious figure that we have. Ain't I a little stinker?
You know, and it was just like, this was Mel Blanc, you know, he was my idol. Well, one of them, I have a whole gallery of them. But I just, it was surreal doing it. But what really turned me on was somebody showing you a picture that they worked long and hard on and say, well, what are you going to do? Oh, no pressure, you know. You get a bunch of characters and you got to figure it out. But a reboot of something, I really don't know. I mean, some of them don't deserve a reboot. Rocky Bullwinkle kind of did, because that was another one of those shows that the animation wasn't very good, but the voices were spectacular. You know, and it was Bill Scott, who played Bullwinkle, but he used to be like those guys on the street, like if they're watching something going on. There's something you don't see every day, Gilbert, you know. And he was just like all over the place, and I never knew it was him. And I was blown away by that. And June Foray, my friend, did Rocky the Flying Squirrel and Natasha No Goodnik. And it was the Cold War, it really was. It was 1961. You know, the Bay of Pigs, 1962. We were going to go to war with Russia. And I'd be in the second grade, and then we used to have to hide under the desks and all that crap. You know, somebody should have just come in from the future. You know that stuff ain't gonna work. You know, but they didn't, so we had to go through all that.
Okay, I love you. So as a voice actor, you mentioned you like to do like crazy voices and you kind of just do them randomly and people tell you to shut up a lot.
Yeah, when I was a kid, yeah.
I do the same things.
I love you too.
Oh my God! I can't stand up. So I wanted to know, has there been any weird experiences where like you've been doing voices and you don't realize it, and someone turns around and looks at you? Like, has there been any weird encounters like that?
Yeah, when I was a drunk and a drug addict. You know, I mean, I was not a professional, and this is like, I stopped everything like over 30 years ago. And so, but when I was running around like a maniac, I would dance on tabletops. I just wanted to be the show wherever I was, and it used to get me beat up. It used to get me in trouble all the time, and it was just inappropriate. When you're a little kid like that, people are just going to look at you and go, oh, that kid. You know, but when you're a full-grown adult doing that stuff, it's like curtains. If somebody gets their hand on you, bam, you know. And I made fun of people, and I had this very vicious, like, way to cut people down, you know, with words. And it was because I was protecting myself, as I was not a good person, and I was quick to point out everybody else's faults to overcompensate for how I felt deep inside. I didn't like myself like that. And so that's why I just quit, stopped everything. I was lucky. But as far as that goes, I mean, you know, when I was a kid, I used to take anything. If there was a teddy bear, it would become a puppet. and rip all the stuffing out of it. And I used to have like these little back and forths. And, you know, and I kind of got used to it. And I had a point of view, because I had a horrible childhood. Like I said, my dad was a psycho and a drunk and an abuser. So I was like, I lived in my own little world, you know. I didn't want to let anybody in. Even if he was beating on me, I'd be a million miles away in a green field, you know, out of self-protection and self-preservation. So, you know, little did I know that these kinds of things were going to be extremely helpful. And then when you learn to bust out of yourself and realize your self-worth, I found it very easy jumping back and forth, which I do in a lot of stuff. On Futurama, I think I went through 6 pages of dialogue talking to myself. Somebody said, "Hey, so you're literally talking to yourself?" Yeah. I said, "Yeah, I need a better class of people that way, too." Oh!
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
You mentioned earlier recreating classic roles that other voice actors have done before. Is there one that you found particularly challenging or difficult to nail down?
Yeah, Popeye. They did it on Fox. They had the Quest for Pappy, or the Quest for Pappy, Popeye's Quest, or something like that. And Fox did it. And when I was a kid, I mean, everybody tried to do it, but nobody was doing it right. We all kind of sucked, you know. But I saw this movie once. It was called, what was it called? Genghis Blues or something like that. And it was about this country, Tuva, which is, I think it's below Mongolia. And they had a cowboy culture, which means they were still like horses and carts, you know, wagons. And they developed their own music. And it's a horse beat culture. That's where we get country music from. It's like, you know, the original stuff. And then they go to open their mouth and sing. It was like, and that was Tuvan throat singing is what it was called. And they could sing chords. And I listened to it, and it sounded like a woods full of Popeyes. You know, and I said, wait a minute, maybe that's how he did it. So Popeye voice is like a high voice and a low voice at the same time, which is like,
Yoo-hoo, olive oil, I bring you some flowers.
and then it's like, you, olive oil, I bring you some flowers. And you put them together.
You, olive oil, I bring you some flowers.
It's like, it ripped me to pieces. You know, I worked for a few days on it, and I was totally ripped to pieces. It was like imitating a jack saw or a buzz saw, you know what I mean? For like a few days. It was crazy. I could have done the soundtrack to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's what it felt like.
So, if you had a choice for $500,000 or to live in the year...
Is that all?
or to live in the year 3000 with the Futurama people, which would you choose?
I don't know if we're going to make it out of this decade. Honest to God, it's like everything that you had in your head as the worst nightmare is going to come true. You know, all my things that I love so much are going to be underwater. You know, all my guitars, all my photos, everything is going to be underwater. And it's like, gee whiz, I don't know if I'd want to continue on into the future so hastily. I don't know, that's fatalistic. But
what was the hardest thing about voice acting for you? Like doing the scheduling or getting a certain character's voice right?
I think, you know, you get assignments, like somebody asks you to audition for something, and I will audition, you know, for anything. People say, you have to audition? I said, yeah, I have that old mentality. If you want to work, you've got to show people, you know, and you got to meet them too. I don't want to live on a desert island with an ISDN line and just phone it in, you know, to a studio in LA. You know, I always like being with the people that I'm working with. But for M&Ms, a lot of times you're talking to England in the middle of the night, and it's your morning. And like, we're all right, Billy. We're doing all right. We had a few drinks. Yeah, we're doing even better. You know, they have you do a commercial or promos, you know, for Britain's market, European market. But it's, yeah, scheduling is weird, especially if you're really busy. But I don't dare. How can I complain about stuff like that? It's like, that's what I wanted more than anything. It's like, you know, your mouth to God's ear. You better be careful what you wish for, because it might happen.
First of all, thank you so much for all the voices. But one of the shows that people neglect to mention is the Weird Al show. So
really,
I want to know, what were your experiences doing voices for the Weird Al show?
Well, I always loved Weird Al, and I loved song parody guys, like going way back. Like even in the 40s, there was a guy named Spike Jones who used to do song parodies. And he was brilliant, you know, and he led the orchestra, and they played the weirdest combinations of instruments. And he had guys that could talk like little, excuse me, little babies and sing like that. Then there was Stan Freberg in the 50s, and he did the first Elvis parody. You know, the week Heartbreak Hotel was on the air, that later on that week there was a parody from Stan Freberg, and he would just sing it kind of screwed up and, you know, have fun with it. And they'd become hits. They were comedy records. You know, and then the third in all of this was Weird Al. He reminded me of those guys, so I respected him greatly. And, you know, of course I find out he's a Ren and Stimpy fan, and I went to audition for him. And he was just so into just sitting there and working with me on what he was looking for and everything. So it was great. You know, I got to work with the woman that did the voice of Wilma Flintstone. Her name was Jean Vanderpoel. He had them on because he was a classy guy. He was respecting the people that came before us. And they had this guy Henry Corden, who was not the original voice of Fred Flintstone. It was Alan Reed. But you know, he did an okay job. But he was there, and you know, he was in the Fruit Loops commercials. You know, it was like, watch me trick Fred. And it's like, Barney, you know, and then when you watch the original Flintstones, it's like, Rubber. You know, he was big, and he came from radio. And, you know, there was something really special about it. And I imagined a scenario, you know, when Henry Corden goes to heaven someday, up there is Alan Reed waiting for him. Hey, I've been waiting for you. Yeah, but I did the gig after you died. I don't care.
If you could choose any other job in the world, what would you choose?
I think because I love animals so much, and I always bonded with them, because I just thought they were so damn honest, you know? It doesn't get more honest than that. And I have a couple of cats, and it's like, I love them. If I was just half the man those cats thought I was, I'd be doing good. And they make us better than we are. So, you know, I think it's fun to do different characters. You know, it was like, that's why the episode Jurassic Park got to everybody. Everybody knows what it's like to bond with an animal, and you have to say hello and goodbye to a lot of dear friends in your life. And you wish they would live forever, or at least as long as we do, but they don't. And I think that's what made it so sad. And the fact that he waited for him forever. You know, I was getting wistful. And I even knew what it was gonna do. I read it and performed it, and still when I saw it on TV, I was like, oh, yeah.
I have a question. When you were doing Ren and Stimpy, can you do Stampy Idiot for me?
Stampy, idiot! Roar! Block psychoprotoplasm!
So I've been in voice acting, nothing reputable myself.
Congrats, though.
Yeah, all three of them.
You've got to start somewhere.
when I started, it was because a friend of mine was in video game design. He was like, I need you to do like 20 things. Can you do that? I was like, I don't know. Find out.
That's how it happens. That's how it starts.
And I've come to find out I have a hard time with sticking with a voice.
Oh, you mean consistency?
Yeah.
You got to keep thinking about it and not. I mean, you have to care about the copy, whatever the words are. You have to know which words are more important than other words, and you have to have peaks and valleys. But then they expect you to keep hanging on to that voice while you're thinking of all these other things. And the thing is you got to concentrate on that sound and record yourself. And you go, there's where I fell out. I can hear me all over it. It's like, I'm going to do it again. Because the best thing to do is make it so that nobody would recognize those characters unless you watched them for 25 years and you go, there's Billy again, that's Billy. You know, and I know it's you. Yeah, you are. I mean, it's been a quarter of a century, for God's sakes. And, but that's a really good thing that he got you going on that, because that opens you up. It makes you want to work harder and do better than you did. And I was thrown into radio, you know. I mean, one morning I called into a radio show, and it was a quiz, or it was a contest, and it said, you sound like Mel Blanc. And I said, well, I was caught off guard, you know, and they hung up on me. I said, that's hung up on me. Okay. And he goes, hi, WBCN, you sound like Mel Blanc. And I was like,
what do you think?
You know, he goes, hold on. So, and then the disc jockey said, oh, we got a live one, you know. So I just did some whacked out dog and pony show. And I wound up getting a job at the radio station. Because you have to go where people need you. You know what I mean? Like radio, every wacky morning show needs some kind of person that can do characters or impressions or just anything that's entertaining. And so that's a logical place to go. You drop a line or call, you speak to a program director and he goes, listen, I know you got a morning show, but can you use somebody that does voices? And they'll say, yeah, sure, come on in. And then they'll let you do anything you want as long as they don't have to pay you. You know, but I mean, eventually it led to a paying job. But I got thrown into it, so I had to learn something about the medium of radio. And then, once I took a look at what you could do with it, all the stuff I had for ideas came from 30 years before me, when radio was the big deal, and there was no television. And so a lot of my favorite performers came from radio, you know, because it was out there, and the morning shows began to need people that did voices. So it's kind of a no-brainer, and that's a good way to get going. And then you start auditioning, and you try to get an agent or somebody that can know where the auditions are and say, listen, go down to here, and you know, just throw it out there, see what they think. And that's how it's done, you know. You know, but I mean, I was so driven, you know. I said, I want to be Flavor of the Month 12 times a year. Is that too much to ask? No. But I had always a good sense of humor about everything, you know, because making fun of stuff or making light of things, even if they're terrible things, it's the only way I can get my mind around the world. Otherwise, I'd break down. I'd have a nervous breakdown with the news and everything. You know, just the local news even. And, you know, so I try to keep myself out of the danger zone by, you know, I'm always writing a joke about something that happened. You know, and then I can do it for my friends, you know. Yeah. Sure.
So you said that Popeye was a hard voice to get.
Yes.
Was there a harder voice, or was that the hardest to develop?
That was the hardest one I ever wound up doing. I mean, I've done characters that do nothing but scream like drill sergeants or wrestling guys or you know, wrestling announcers. You know, ladies and gentlemen! You know, and that stuff will rip you up, but yeah, Popeye was the toughest.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to prep for the cosplay contest that's coming in here.
Oh yeah, you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Be safe. Gas on the right, brake on the left. Good luck and have fun. Thank you.